Let's talk about exchange rates. I'm in Tanzania where, in order to get anything that I need or want, like their amazing fabrics, I need to exchange some of these for some of these. But it's not just if you travel that you need to worry about exchange rates because so much of what we buy at home is made somewhere else.
The prices we pay for imported goods depend in part on the exchange rates for the currencies where the products are made. The graph that shows how exchange rates are determined is conveniently similar to the supply and demand graph for a good. The difference is that what is being bought and sold is a currency and the price is the exchange rate. Consider the market for Tanzanian shillings bought with US dollars. The quantity of shillings demanded decreases as the price of dollars increases, which makes the demand curve downward sloping, just like in the markets for other goods. And as for most goods, the quantity of shillings supplied increases as the price in dollars increases, making the supply curve upward sloping. The equilibrium of supply and demand establishes the quantity bought and sold and the market exchange rate, which is the number of dollars paid per shilling. Shifts in the supply and demand curves change the exchange rate. Let's consider some examples. If Tanzanian fabric and gems and safaris become more popular, the demand for shillings will increase as people buy more Tanzanian currency so that they can buy more Tanzanian goods and services. The result will be a rightward shift of the demand curve for shillings and an increase in the exchange rate. We call that increase an appreciation of the shilling. If the general level of wealth in Tanzania increases, Tanzanians will buy more of most goods, including imports from the United States. To buy those additional imports, they will supply more shillings in exchange for dollars, which increases the supply of shillings and shifts the supply curve to the right, decreasing the exchange rate. We call that decrease a depreciation of the shilling. Some changes shift both the supply curve and the demand curve at the same time. For example, suppose the overall price level in Tanzania rises, so safaris and pineapples and tea and everything else gets more expensive there. The demand for shillings will decrease because Americans won't want to buy as much of the now more expensive Tanzanian products. At the same time, Tanzanians will want to avoid the high prices in Tanzania and buy more products in the United States instead, so they will supply more shillings in exchange for US dollars. The resulting leftward shift of the demand curve and rightward shift of the supply curve lower the exchange rate for shillings, and the shilling depreciates. Changes in interest rates cause both curves to shift as well. Suppose the interest rates paid by Tanzanian banks rise. More Americans will want to put their money in Tanzanian banks, which requires the Americans to buy shillings. So the demand for shillings increases and the demand curve shifts to the right. Meanwhile, the higher interest rate in Tanzania makes deposits by Tanzanians in U.S. banks less appealing, so fewer Tanzanians will sell their shillings to get dollars for deposit in U.S. banks. This decreases the supply of shillings and shifts the supply curve to the left. Both of these shifts raise the exchange rate for shillings, and the shilling appreciates. Countries like Tanzania that let the market determine the exchange rate have what is called a floating exchange rate. The governments of some countries, such as Nepal, buy and sell currencies to keep the exchange rate steady. They have a fixed exchange rate. If, say, the demand for their currency increases, the government will increase the supply to keep the exchange rate steady. Croatia is among the countries that have adopted a managed float for their currency, which means that they allow the market to determine the exchange rate within certain boundaries. If the exchange rate gets too high or too low, the government steps in to make an adjustment. Whether the exchange rate floats freely or not, you can think of the foreign exchange markets as working like the markets for goods and services. And remember that exchange rates matter, whether you're in the Serengeti or in Starbucks.